Welcome to Holistic Health with Melissa, a podcast for women who are ready to stop living in survival mode and start truly healing. I'm Melissa, a holistic trauma and anxiety coach, and here we talk about all things holistic healing for trauma, anxiety, and the nervous system. We blend science, scripture, and somatic work to help you regulate your body, renew your mind, and reconnect with the peace God designed for you to live in. If you're craving real healing, freedom from symptoms, and joy that reaches your mind, body, and spirit, you're in the right place. I think that it's kind of what we were talking about a little bit ago with just like social media and like 2026. And I feel like it's so easy to not be in flow and
Yes.
like not be able to like listen and let go, right? Like people in my experience and like many of the clients that I talk to and work with, and it's so hard for people to do that and tap into that like inner guidance and the intuition and the feeling. Hi friend, do you feel like you've done all the things? You've tried therapy, the pills, the diets, the supplements, and you're still wondering, why do I not feel like myself? You have a good life, but something still feels missing. You don't feel fully energized, alive, peaceful, or free, and deep down, you know you were made for more. That's exactly why I created the Freedom Collective. This unique 6-month coaching experience with community and one-to-one support is designed to help women stop forcing healing and finally feel safe in their bodies again. We blend science, scripture, somatic healing, nervous system restoration, mindset work, and Christ-centered identity to heal the whole person, body, soul, and spirit. Because true healing isn't just symptom management. It's becoming rooted, rewired, and restored so you can live from peace, freedom, and overflow. If this sounds supportive to you, check out the details on my website and reach out for a free clarity call to see if it's a good fit for you. I would love to walk alongside you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Holistic Health with Melissa. I am so excited that you are here today. We have Laurie Smith with us, and we're going to dive into something really fascinating. I've been captivated, just sharing with her, I've been captivated by her social media content and cannot wait to read the book. I've got it in my hands and I can't wait to read it. Let me read her bio. Laurie Smith is an inspirational author, professional speaker, workshop facilitator, and coach, and has been working in the fields of creativity and personal growth for 25 years. She's on a mission to spread the word about the transformative power of everyday flow, those experiences we have when we are so into what we are doing that we lose track of time. Laurie is the author of several books, including The Flow Habit, which was just released December 2025 by Hay House and Penguin Random House. Since the start of the COVID pandemic, hundreds of creative people around the world have participated in Laurie's free 28-day flow challenges. She is passionate about how flow can help us access our creative spark, live our best lives, and share our unique gifts with the world. Laurie, thank you so much for being here. I am I'm so honored and just cannot wait to dive into this conversation.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've been really excited about this.
Well, I am so happy to have you here, and I would just love to hear a little bit about kind of how you got into this work. How did you discover flow? How did you end up writing this book, and what brought you here today?
I have been a coach and doing lots of different healing types of work for many decades. But at the start of the pandemic, I don't know if you remember those really early days of the lockdown when didn't really know what was going on. There was a lot of different information coming at us. I was feeling really anxious, and our kids were asking us me lots of questions, and I realized that I was feeling really off balance. Like I wasn't feeling as if I could show up as my very best self. And it was a time in my life where I was also, while I had been working and coaching and doing workshops and speaking, I had gotten away from my true love, which is writing. And I was familiar with the concept of flow, and we can talk a little bit about what flow is. But I knew that flowing feeling when you just, are locked into doing something that you love to do, where the rest of the world falls away. And for me, that was always writing and doing creative work. And I sort of had this aha moment where I was like, wow, it's been a really long time since I felt that way. And as a result, I really didn't feel like I was able to show up for the people that were looking to me for support, my kids and my family in the way that I wanted to. And so I challenged myself to do something every day for just 5 to 10 minutes a day that brought me joy and that had a high chance of getting me into flow. And for me at that time, it was writing. It was getting back to my love of writing. I used to love to write stories as a little kid and started my career writing, and I had really gotten away from it. And it sounds kind of funny right now, but to me that was really radical. It was like I was challenging myself to do something that brought me joy that wasn't going to help other people directly. I mean, of course, in this conversation, we'll talk about how all these things do. Flow does ripple out and help us and others in many ways. But the actual choice was, you know, going back to what brings me joy, not because it's going to make me better or improve. It's not because of self-improvement. It's not because of anything externally driven. It's just because I love to do this activity. And I was so surprised when I showed up, pen to paper, and sometimes I forgot I was even doing, I called it my 28-day flow challenge, and I forgot I was even doing it. And then other days I would do it. It was very imperfect. It was definitely an experiment. I kept it private in the beginning, but then it started to make me feel so much better. And I started feeling more confident, and I started feeling more connected, and I started feeling a calling and reconnecting with my joy of writing and my love of writing. And I started even writing poetry, which I had never written poetry in my life, but it was almost like felt like I was just like downloading, lines of poetry that were about my own personal process. That I started telling other friends. And I said, you don't have to choose writing. Choose something that brings you joy, that reconnects with that spark within you, that has a high chance of getting you into flow. And so some of my friends chose watercolor painting. Others, my mother, who was in her 80s, chose going for a sunrise walk every morning. And some people chose just taking pictures of flowers in nature, or everyone chose what did that for them, that helped them to come back into the present moment, to feel a little bit of flow, maybe, or at the minimum, reconnect with that joyful part of themselves. And I was so amazed that I started sharing it on, you mentioned my social media, I started sharing it on Instagram, and lots of people started showing up. And I was writing every day anyway. So I thought, let me just write an email to all those people that are participating so that we can come together as a community and there's something holding us. And then I started showing up and offering free Zoom calls, and people from all over the world started participating. People from Kenya and Uganda and Asia were, just people. And the most beautiful thing was when we started talking about these activities and what they meant to us and that feeling of flow, even though we might have been so different culturally or from different parts of the world or had very different lives, it was as if we were old friends. We connected with that true self, that real kind of, we're talking about what really mattered in life and what filled us up. And so then I just started getting so passionate about flow. I've been kind of obsessed about flow ever since those early days of the lockdown. And my career started in the pharmaceutical industry, and I love peer-reviewed research and learning about the psychology behind why certain things are good for us. And so I started studying flow, and I went down the rabbit hole and just learned so much that I was like, I have to share this with the world. And so this is the second book that came out of that time in my life. And really, The Flow Habit, my new book, is all about. I have this motto in there, and every chapter ends with a section that says, "You're already a flow expert." And I really believe that. Everybody that I've spoken with on this journey has a moment where they remember having that feeling where they're so into what they're doing that they lose track of time, even if it's just for a few moments. And so the book is all about helping the reader reclaim that formula for themselves. Like, what does it for you? And how can you let more of that flow into your life? And it's really, really healing, is what I've discovered. There's lots of stories in the book about all the different healing experiences that people have come to. It's like unlocking that one thing that's within us, and it's available to each of us, that can make such a difference.
Oh, wow. That's such a powerful story, like, and such a good thing to have come out of the pandemic. I do remember those early days of the pandemic. I was 6 months pregnant when COVID,
Oh, wow.
working as a nurse in patient-facing nursing. And I remember coming home from work every day, just like so anxious and worried, and I had no idea how it was going to affect my baby. And yeah, that was a crazy time. So I'm so glad that you found this. And when you talk about flow, you say, I've heard you say a couple times, it says in your bio, like getting into the state that where you lose track of time. Is that exactly what it is? Because I feel like it's more than that.
It is. Yeah, when I say that, often people sort of do remember, like we did a cross country trip as a family, and as we were driving across America, I interviewed people about flow and like, were they aware of flow? And most people had never heard of the expression flow or the flow state. But then when I did say, it's that feeling when you lose track, you're doing something that you love to do and you lose track of time, most people sort of have this recognition. And then when they share the stories, it is a flow experience. But you're right, it is so much more than that. I came up with an acronym, sort of a framework called the Feel Positive Flow Framework. And the word positive represents all of those experiences that are often associated with flow. We could experience some of them, but not all of them. But basically, when we're doing something and we get so present with what we're doing that the rest of the world falls away. So we might have an altered experience of time. Time might speed up, it might slow down, we might lose track of it. We often feel a sense of merging. So the acronym positive, the P is for positive emotion. So we often feel we're enjoying what we're doing on some level. We're feeling good. The O is for oneness. And while we're doing the activity, we often feel like we're merging with the activity. So it could feel like words are flowing out of our pen, or if we're having a conversation with a friend and it's just flowing, it's just we and the friend might almost feel like we're one, and there's no effort. The S is a sense of self, a strong sense of self. And that what I love most, because I consider myself a recovering perfectionist, what I love most about the flow experience is that we lose our sense of self during flow, a sense of self-consciousness. We're not really thinking about how we look or what the other person thinks of us. We've just let that all go. Which is why I think it's so healing and healthy. But then after a flow experience, we often have a stronger sense of self. There's it's kind of a circular connection between confidence and flow, where the better we feel about ourselves, so the more we can lift ourselves up, the higher a chance we have of being able to let go and become absorbed by an activity. And then after flow, or the more flow we feel in our lives, the better we often feel about ourselves. So those are the three biggies. I won't go through the whole acronym; it's in the book. But it is this way in which we connect. The science behind flow is that the parts of our brain that rule the inner critic and rule us versus them thinking, and rule hierarchical thinking, like who's on first, who's better, who's best, all of that goes offline. And they've seen this actually in scans of the brain where they're not lit up. And that gives us access to all these other parts of ourselves. And so that, as I mentioned, it's like, the inner critic turns way down. So it's really healing for those of us who are really hard on ourselves, or, are struggling from trauma related to self-worth. The more we can give ourselves permission to do activities that bring us joy, the more we can create those neural pathways for flow. And flow, one of the biggest things about flow is that it is caused by intrinsic motivation, which basically means we have an inner reason to do the activity. So we can experience flow even if it's something that we've been told to do by someone else, or it's part of our job. We don't, somebody out there, we need to do it for their approval or to keep our job or whatever it is. The minute we figure out creatively how to make that, do it on our own terms, how to make it fun in a way that works for us, or how to, the minute we connect to the meaning behind why we're doing what we're doing, based on our values, or even if it's, a job that we don't like, but we connect with providing for our family, or why it matters to us personally, that causes that little intrinsic motivation spark. And so, you mentioned the trauma and the anxiety around the COVID pandemic. And what I love about flow is that it's a way that we can take our power back. And it's a way, and why I'm so passionate about sharing the word about flow is I think once we have that framework in our minds, it's sort of something that we've all experienced or understand intuitively. There's some memory of sort of how this works. But I love to say, when we make conscious what we're already doing unconsciously, that's when we gain the power to dramatically change our lives. So a lot of what I'm sharing, you know, uh, your listeners and it's probably familiar on some level, but when we start to look at how we approach life through this flow framework, suddenly we realize that this is innate. This is biologically encoded in each of us as human beings. It's not something we necessarily have to learn how to do. It's within us. And the calm, peaceful experience that we have when we're in a flow state, when we're doing an activity that we love to do, when we've figured out our own method of blocking out the outer world and locking in through experimenting and being playful about it, when we do that, we experience this peace that's always within us, and it's just this, it can feel like a space, like sometimes we can use flow to escape the real world, so we have to be careful about how we use it, but always it's that peace within. Flow has a way of connecting us, even if we're doing something that really is stretching us out of our comfort zone, or it is, a full action, full body sport, and it's engaging all of us. There's still this sort of calm as we're doing it, even if the beautiful thing about flow is it's this spot between, we can be engaged and calm at the same time. It's one of the few human experiences where it's very practical because we're engaged in the world, we're in the world, but we're also experiencing this kind of peace that we might experience in prayer or worship or meditation or whatever. It's like, it's the two together, at the same time. So.
Yeah, wow. You said that it's like it's this innate, it's innately inside of us, like we already have inside of us. And when you said that, I was like, wow, I feel like it's like I see it in my kid. I have two young boys, they're 5 and 10, and I see it. I'm thinking like, oh wow, they like get into flow like so easily, right? They're
Yes.
like my oldest is obsessed with Legos. He'll play Legos for like 4 hours on a
Yeah.
Saturday. Like, and I
Yes.
won't hear a peep from him, right?
Yes.
And he's like totally in flow. And I'm like, something about like growing up and becoming an adult, and I don't know, there's probably lots of theories on this. I think I probably have my own theory, but like something about that process makes people like unable to access that state anymore. And I'm wondering kind of like what you think about that, because I feel like people are so like just stuck and disconnected and stressed and right now, right, like as a whole,
Yes.
compared to even just like 20 years ago. So I'm curious like how you see, what you think about that, like if that's, is it just a function of like 2026 and social media and overstimulation? Is it a function of like, are we just more depressed as a whole because of whatever, poor nutrition, and like what is it? Because we have it
Yeah.
and then we lose it.
Yes. I mean, it's such a big question, and I have so many ideas and so many directions I could run in. Um, I love to just sort of hold up the light that I love that you brought up your kids, because I like to remind people that that's all within each of us, and so
We
I
forget how
think
to access it.
yes, so we have to remember there's a couple things. One, I've heard and that our prefrontal cortex as kids isn't fully formed yet, and it's that's the executive function part of the brain. And so one of my personal theories is in some of the scans of the brain, they show that the prefrontal cortex goes offline during flow, so it might be a little bit easier for children to have that experience. And I don't there I have not read any studies about this. I would be
Yeah.
curious if there are some, but um, but the other thing about it is obviously with social media, it's such a focus on exterior. Like we're constantly, and I've even seen this as I've been promoting the book, so much of it is marketing is about external, doing what we're doing for an external audience, and I had to be careful about that as writing a book. Writers often say, okay, there's the writer and then the editor within you, and which brain you have to be careful. Like you can't mix them because I get into flow. You can get into flow doing both, right? But if you're in flow as a writer and then you let your editor self keep getting involved and rearranging the paragraphs, the flow will stop, right? And so that's kind of what we're experiencing with social media. And you're right, it's just getting more and more and more. And so that is all affecting our brain as well, right? We're getting these neural pathways looking for outer affirmation. So to navigate all of that, I like to remind people one of the ways forward I find is remembering what it felt like as a child, like making a list of all of those activities that you love to do as a child. And I often, when I teach workshops and do speaking engagements, I often lead people through a guided meditation where they go back when they were a child and they get to like kind of see themselves as they're doing those things, because then in a relaxed state of visualization or meditation, it's almost like a nighttime dream where we get to like re-experience that, and then we remember, oh, wait a minute, I have that's in me still. Like I have the cellular memory of what that feels like. And or oh, I love playing, I love teaching. I used to play school all the time. Well, how can I connect with that love, even if I'm not going to become a teacher? I obviously got into flow doing that with my, stuffed animals in the classroom or whatever. And how might that also point to a calling? Like how were these skills that we used as children doing our playful activities, how might that reveal not just the spark within us, but actually something that we're really good at? And how can we start to use those gifts in the world that helps us heal? Because then there's that circular effect of, giving and receiving. And so um, yeah, I mean, when we speak about trauma, so my book starts with a near-death experience that I had on an airplane, and during that experience, I felt this deep, deep, deep sense of calm, and I think it's helpful to remember that we have this biological encoding in which we can access calm even when the worst thing that we could possibly imagine is happening to us, like during the COVID pandemic when we were triggered. And the Hungarian American psychologist who discovered flow was named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he was a young boy in Europe during World War II. And this was before we even knew what flow was or had identified it as this experience, this psychological experience. And he noticed that when he was playing chess as a young boy, he would get so into playing chess that he wouldn't hear the bombs going off around him. And he didn't realize how unsafe he was. And he often, when that happened, when he blocked it out, he often played chess so much better because there's so much data that flow in a flow state. we perform at a much higher level and we're able to achieve things that we aren't able to achieve when we're not in flow. And well, I love that story for so many reasons. First of all, it's a good reminder to us that this is within, like we all have this calm within us. And what I just said about, we can feel calm even when the worst thing is happening or our anxiety is ramped up. The more we can discover those activities that do it for us, we can even use them, as strategies to navigate life and navigate the world instead of reaching for our phone to get into flow scrolling, right? We can reach for our pen and paper and sketch or whatever it does for us. So that's one reason I love that story. But I also love that story because it reminds us that, when we're children, there's often little glimmers, sparkly events, sparkly moments that brought us joy that often are when we were in flow. And they can also give us little secrets or be like little whispers from our past that are still within us, biologically. We have the muscle memory of those, and they can lead us, kind of guide us forward and sort of be a light that we follow forward. Like he always remembered that story and couldn't get it out of his mind. And so ultimately, when he ended up becoming a psychologist, that was the question that he was asking. It's like, what makes life enjoyable? And why, after the war, he noticed that some people were more resilient and recovered better, even when they had been in the concentration camps and experienced these horrific traumas. And why did some people recover more easily than others? And he noticed that it had a lot to do with this flow experience. And there's been a lot of data that has come out even after the pandemic, that showed there was a study in China that showed that those people during the lockdown that had high flow hobbies that they resorted to had much less usage of alcohol or junk food. They self-medicated much less with things that weren't good for them. And I believe it's because they were self-medicating with all the good,
The good things.
effects of flow. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. From like you mentioned that you like to read peer-reviewed research. I'm curious to know like flow, like that word, is that what it's called like in the scientific community? And then what is the definition of it from a scientific, like how do they describe it in papers?
Yeah. So it is called either the flow state, which is what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called it. And then now there is a movement among some psychologists to call it a flow experience. So there's some debate whether it's an actual altered state or whether it's just a psychological experience that we have. And as far as the formal definition, so there are 9 conditions more or less that have been described as being associated with flow. And some of them, when I looked at the 9 conditions, that's how I came up with my feel positive flow
Ah,
framework.
okay.
And so what I noticed when I looked at the 9 conditions is they say not all of these conditions exist every time we have a flow experience, but often we have many of these. And when I looked at them, I was like, some of them are things we have control over, like if we set clear goals, like often flow, one of the conditions that is the formal definition of what a flow state is that we have clear goals or we sort of know we're clear about why we're doing what we're doing, So that we have control over. But often the another condition, which was in the list, is this altered time that we've talked about. And so I realized, okay, some of them we have control over and some we don't. And in my teaching and my workshops, I was looking for a way to guide people on how to experience more flow. So I was looking
Yeah.
for, okay, what are those things we have control over, those conditions we can put into place for ourselves, and what are those conditions that seem to happen as a result of flow?
Hmm.
And because as a teacher and a workshop facilitator and a coach, that's what I'm looking for. How can this be usable in our
Yeah.
life? And so the word positive is sort of what happens, the benefits of flow, or the experiences that could accompany flow. And the P, as I mentioned, is positive emotions. O is oneness, which we talked about, which is like the merging. The S is the
Yeah.
strong sense of self after flow. I is innovative. We feel much more creative like your son with Legos, when we're in a flow state or flow, having a flow experience. The T is we have an altered sense of time in some way. The second I is intuitive. There's a lot of research out there that we sort of, it's like we feel like there, it's not coming from our brain. It's almost like we're intuitively led, where just like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi kind of knew where to put his chess piece. It's that sort of experience. And then the V is velocity. And that's a word I came up with, and but basically it's to describe this whole idea of performance. And I like to say it's the three Qs. We can do what we're doing quicker, at a higher quantity, a higher quality, and we can often produce a higher quantity. So it's quantity, quality, and quantity, quality, and quicker. Yeah. And then the E is egolessness, which is what I mentioned as far as we're not as self-conscious. So we're not worried about what people think of us. We're just in the experience. So that's
Mm.
kind of when we have those or some mixture of those, we sort of know that we've experienced flow. The word feel, that acronym, those are the four steps to creating a flow state that we can increase. It's not always, 100% we're going to experience flow every time. And in fact, when we're like reaching and we're wanting flow too much, sometimes we don't experience it.
It'll elude us for sure if
Yes,
we're trying
yes.
that. Yeah, will you go into that? Because that was my next question is how do you get into it?
Yes, so the feel, I first of all, I love the phrase feel positive because for me, that's the number one benefit I think that we get from flow is this feeling of emotional wellness. I love the word feel because so much of what we do is think our way, right? We try to think our way into feeling better, or think our way into, quieting our inner critic or whatever it is. But if it's felt experience flow. So that the word feel reminds us of that. But the F is focus. And I like to ask a question that accompanies each of the four steps. So for focus, it's what is my top priority in this moment? So if we ask ourselves that as we're doing something, that can help us to not multitask as much and to lock in and to be clear about our goal for whatever short period of time or long period of time it is. So that's the F for focus. And then the first E is engage. And we've talked a lot about that already with this intrinsic motivation and joy. And the question about for that, as I've sort of mentioned lightly before, it's how can I make this more fun and meaningful for me?
Mm.
So bringing it back to each of us are unique people, and nobody can tell you, how to make an activity flow. You have all the answers within. And then the second E is equalize. And there's a lot of data about flow being sort of a sweet spot between two extremes. Like we're not bored, but we're not anxious. We're challenging ourselves that just right amount. And equalize is a word that came out of my experiences learning to scuba dive, where we have to equalize the pressure of the outer air pressure and the inner air pressure. And so it's an inner experience. It's different for each of us. It's different for the activity. It's different for given how we're feeling on that day and what's going on around us. But it's equalizing, finding that sweet spot, that just right spot of challenging ourselves enough that we're engaged, but not too much that we're freaking out and we're feeling anxious. And then the L is listen and let go. And there's lots of data about how we receive feedback. If we can actively be receiving feedback from the activity we're doing and pivoting as we're going, it's like that beautiful, process of like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi with chess, right? He's getting feedback from the other player and what's happening on the board. But then there is also this not holding too tightly. It's like a simultaneous paying attention, but not, but also letting go and just like in my book, The Flow Habit, I don't know if you ever did jump rope where, two friends would do the
Yeah,
jump rope and you had to
yeah.
jump in. And that's a great example to me of like the listening and let going, because we're like listening to when the rope is hitting the ground, we're tuned in, we're present, we're fully focused, right? So we're listening to the what's going on around us, but then there's that moment where we just have to let go. We just have to trust, we have to jump in. And then as we're jumping, if we think about where the rope is going under our feet, we'll trip and we'll get out of the experience. So there's that
Like, just have
release,
to
that let
feel.
go where we just let ourselves
Yeah.
become one with the jump rope, right? But we're listening at the same time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do it. But it's almost like we're not even aware that we're listening. So,
Oh, that's yeah, it's so interesting because like I can feel I can I have the memories and I can feel the feelings, and I think I even get into flow sometimes now. Um and I think I need to work on it more. But also like I think that it's kind of what we were talking about a little bit ago with just like social media and like 2026, and I feel like it's so easy to not be in flow and
yes.
like not be able to like listen and let go, right? Like
Mhm.
people in my experience and like many of the clients that I talk to and work with, and it's so hard for people to do that and tap into that like inner guidance and the intuition and the feeling. And what do you think, like what would be your recommendation to somebody who's like, I don't know if I can do this, like what, like how do I get in, I don't know how,
Yes.
there's too many things going on, like
Yes.
how do we do it in a world full of distraction?
Yeah, I mean the key is I there's two things. One, there's something I like to call the flow mindset, which is being playful and curious and not as we mentioned, like clinging too much to the experience, but just trying something out and seeing if it works. Trying, playing around with an activity that you love to do. And the other is I'm a big, big fan of baby steps, which is why, in my flow challenge, I had to do just 5 to 10 minutes a day. And I
Mm,
still, like on my website, I still offer those daily emails because sometimes it's helpful for people if they want to try a 28-day flow challenge, they can, and they can just sign up for the emails on my website, or they can just do it on their own, or there's information in the book. But that 5 to 10 minute bite size baby step, playing around, just doing something you love, like that alone, even if you don't get into flow, and that's why I call it a habit. It's like we have so many neural pathways that are and they're getting stronger and stronger, which cause our attention to be shorter, cause us to multitask, and cause us to be looking outward for direction, not inward, right? So we have to counteract that by creating new neural pathways that are linked to our inner wisdom, our intuitive wisdom, our intrinsic motivation, that joy and flow. And the only way we can do that, I mean, all the data is really clear on habit formation. We start small. And I believe, we have to sort of, how we do this is everything, right? Like how we approach flowing more in our lives. If we can emulate the way flow works, which has a softness to it, right? If we imagine like the flow of a river, right? There's a softness to it. There's like it reaches an obstacle and it doesn't like fight with the obstacle. It just finds a way. Water finds a way around the obstacle. So if we can do our best, right? Like to just play around with it a little bit, a 5 minute, joyful activity, and experiment and kind of notice what happens and be like, oh, that was fun, but it was really hard for me to block out the outer world. Huh. Okay, what can I do? Maybe wear headphones with music. How does that affect it? And kind of be our own research ourselves, right? Like own that we're a flow expert of ourselves, and nobody can figure it out as well as we can for ourselves. And so it's having that softness and that trust and that patience right? To play around with it. And the other thing is there's chapter 3 of my book is all about something called the safer flow cycle. And it's important to remember that we can't be in flow all the time and to be
Mm,
really gentle with ourselves. I know for myself, my journey as a recovering perfectionist, I've had to learn this softness and normalizing that we all get stuck. And there will be times where we live in this world. So of course, we're going to get triggered. And of course, we're going to get tempted to reach for our phones. And, of course, and to remember that everybody else around the world is struggling with this just like us, and to have a lot of compassion for ourselves, and to keep doing it, right? To keep playing and keep challenge. That's why I call it a challenge, because it is a challenge, right? We
yeah.
have to kind of, it's that finding that sweet spot, right? Like challenging ourselves to do this with a sense of softness and playfulness, like we had as a child, and just,
Yeah.
we'll try this and then we'll try that.
And
And
you mentioned that like your mom, she would go on like a sunrise walk, right? Like you were writing, some other friends were doing other things. The boy was playing chess. You said something about like playing a sport. Like you can really get into flow, like doing anything, it sounds like. Are there things that you would say are like more like beginner or like easier to get into flow, or is that really dependent on each individual person?
I think it is dependent, and because it's intrinsic motivation, it's got to spark. It's got to spark. I say follow the sparkles. So like what is something that sparkles for you? And I love for my clients, I do private coaching too, and I love for them to do the work of paying attention to what sparkles as they choose their activity, because that's kind of starts the process in our brains working when we're looking for what brings us joy. And I will say that moving a pen on paper is a popular one. So for me, I doodle, as you mentioned. I have these,
I'll
reels
watch
that.
those videos. They're like captivating. I got into flow watching the videos.
Oh, yeah. Well, I discovered that's a really easy way for me to get into flow, because I don't. I could be very judgmental of whether I'm a good artist or not, right? So for me, doodling, I'm like, I don't care if anybody
Low
thinks I'm a
pressure.
good doodler or not.
Yeah.
Like, what do I care, right? And I'm not attached. So even writing for me, sometimes I can get bunged up with, oh, I'm supposed to be a good writer because I love writing and I'm an author and all the things, right? And so doodling for me was very free. So it can be really helpful to start with something that you really don't care if you're good at or not. It's just something you love to do. And you may never want to do it professionally. And it's just something that's fun and playful, like a game, or like jumping rope. It could be even something little, like drop. I don't know, like, dropping a dice and picking it up, or like playing, a hacky sack, or, when I remember being a kid, and the summers we would throw a tennis ball up as high as we could straight up and then catch it, and then as high as we could over and over and over again. So it was a game I could play alone, or, I'd be out there with my siblings and we'd count and we'd see who did the most. But I definitely, it's almost like you had to get into flow while doing that, or you wouldn't catch it and you wouldn't be able to keep doing it. So it could be things like that, that just, who cares? Like if we're a good tennis ball thrower or catcher,
Catcher.
right? We could be soft on ourselves, but but we have to focus in order to do it. So it could be
Mm.
anything. And it could be, I have people that do the 20 flow challenge and they try a different thing every day, or there's other people that do the same thing, and that's challenging. And so then their experience with writing every day, or their experience with their art deepens. But it's really important to just say, I'm just going to do it for 5 minutes. And a lot of times people do it longer, right? Because you get into flow and you enjoy it and you keep going. But if you don't, that's okay. You just picked up your pen for 5 minutes that day. And it can be reassuring to know, even if you don't get in flow doing it, you are training your brain and putting those neural pathways down, and just reminding yourself. It's almost like, the word is an anchor, like it becomes, your activity can become an anchor to remind yourself of your intention to experience more flow, or to
Mm,
unplug from the outer world in a way that reconnects you with your inner spark. And that's what doodling is for me. I use doodling. I doodle before, big speaking engagements. I doodle before I doodle when I get anxious about things going on with people I love. I doodle as a way to calm my nervous system, and I get into flow almost instantly doing it. And so sometimes things like that come out of the flow challenge where you discover a new method of, your own method of calming
yeah.
your nervous system and helping you kind of come into the here and now.
Yeah. Wow. So cool. So cool, Laurie. Thank you so much for being here and
Oh,
sharing your wisdom. And I think this is going to be so powerful. And it's so like low stress. Like you keep saying, like be soft with yourself. And it's like flow. Like I was imagining like a like scarf almost like in the wind, right? It's just like
beautiful.
up and down and just like flowing. It's not forcing anything. We're not doing anything from force and pressure and oh, I got
Mm.
to do this. Like that's anytime we create anything from that place, I think it's really it's a disservice to us. Um so getting into this flow is so powerful and I just really appreciate you being here and taking the time out to share this all with us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I love your imagery of the scarf. And I often tell people to have something like that, like a symbol or a color or a song or something that represents what flow feels like for you. So for
Mhm.
you, even just imagining that scarf, and maybe for many of us, myself included, it's a beautiful image. And sometimes even just imagining that right before you sit down for a flow activity, or if you feel anxious and you're triggered and you're having a stressful moment, even just, and you can't pick up your pen and doodle or whatever, but just imagining the scarf, and
Yeah,
it can calm your nervous system and connect with that flow experience, and that alone can be really powerful. So yeah,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
If people want to get a hold of you, how is the best way to do that? And tell us where to get the book also.
Yeah, so the book is called The Flow Habit, and it's available wherever books are sold. It's as you mentioned, it's published by Hay House and Penguin Random House. So even if a bookstore doesn't have it, they can usually order it. It's definitely on Amazon. My website is Laurie Smith, my name, LaurieSmith.com. But theflowhabit.com will take you there too if you can't remember my name, theflowhabit.com. And that's where you can sign up for my free 28-day flow challenge. If you want the free 28 emails, you can sign up for my email newsletter. And I also have a podcast, and it's called the Flow Habit Podcast.
Yeah.
So really easy to
That's a good
remember.
name. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was lots of fun.
Thank you so much for listening. If this episode resonated with you, please like it, share it. Go follow Laurie, reach out to her, sign up for her newsletter, and go buy the book. Share this episode with a friend. This is a movement here, you guys. This is a movement. It's not just a message. This is a movement. So share, leave us a review that helps us get the movement out to more people. Catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Holistic Health with Melissa. It is such an honor to have you here. If you found value in today's episode, would you share it with a friend who might need it too and leave us a review? If you have questions or topic suggestions, reach out on social media or visit our website, holistichealthbymelissa.com. And take care. I'll catch you on the next episode.